Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this review of the 2025 Duotone Unit. In this review we will cover the SLS wing and the normal Dacron wing. The SLS wing we have in 6.5 meters and the Dacron wing in 4 meters. I will also be comparing the wing to the previous Duotone Unit 2024 wing, as I've been running these back to back with the new wing to see what the differences are. Both wings have been tested with handles and not the boom. Sadly my tendons and boom wings don't get along, and as these wings are my own personal wings rather than demo wings, I did not purchase any booms. For the past couple of years the Duotone Unit has been my wing of choice to use personally, and we'll see at the end of this test whether that continues. So let's do a quick overview of the construction of the SLS and the Dacron wing, cover a few of the features, and then get onto the on-the-water testing. The SLS wing comes in a Penta TX material for the leading edge and strut, with aluula for the very front section of the leading edge where it joins the strut. This is for maximum strength and stiffness at this critical junction point. The Dacron wing is just Dacron for the entire leading edge and the strut, with no special materials employed. Both wings feature Mod 3S for the canopy, which is an evolution of last year's Mod 3, which is stronger but also lighter. Both wings have a tight canopy over the first third of the canopy from the leading edge, and then loosen towards the rear where there are battens to stop flutter. Both wings have the usual load handling elements at the rear of the strut and the wingtips. The unit is now both a handle wing and a boom wing, and you buy the handles or boom of your choice separately to the wing itself. The slick was the Duotone boom wing, but that's now been replaced with the unit and the option of fitting a boom. The handles come as a long front handle and a shorter rear handle. The boom and the handles now have a pistol grip at the front, but the overall diameter of the handles or boom is the same as last year's unit. The grip on the handle has changed and feels better than last year's grip, and certainly better than the grip on the old slick booms. If you do decide to fit a boom, that is lighter weight than two handles if you're concerned about overall weight. The Dacron wing is what I would consider to be average in terms of weight. It's neither heavy nor light, but sits somewhere in the middle compared to other wings that are available. The SLS wing is lighter weight and sits between a Dacron wing and an aluula wing for weight. So the SLS wing is definitely more stiff than the Dacron wing and has much more of the feel of an aluula wing in terms of its stiffness. The SLS wing and the Dacron wing appear to have less dihedral than the previous unit, and when you hold them on the beach in the wind, they are significantly more stable than the previous generation of unit. The front flag handle is improved, is stiffer and feels a little better, although there are much better or beefier flag handles on the market from other brands. My overall summary would be that we now have a cheaper option for a stiff wing that is very close to the aluula model, but without the price tag of that aluula model, and we have interchangeable handles and booms. The wing itself, from looking at it on the beach, seems to have moved in the direction of a wave wing or a wing with a more stable flag out. The 2025 unit is priced without handles or booms, which you purchase separately. It also does not come with a leash or an adapter for the valve. As always, I'm going to complain about not supplying a valve adapter with the wing. Come on Duotone, it's really a long time this has been going on. Reviewers constantly complain about the fact that you don't provide an adapter. Literally every other manufacturer does this, and we complain about it every single review. I cannot see why it's so difficult to provide an adapter. So with that complaint out the way, let's move to on the water testing, and as always we follow a format for wing tests. We always follow the same format for wing reviews, and you can see that format listed on the left. I won't read them all, as I'm sure you can do that yourself, but we will start out by looking at pumping onto foil and the pump technique required to get the most efficient takeoff. In this clip I'm on a 60 litre board and there is barely enough wind to get onto foil, so you can see an extended pump. The unit actually has a very good low end and is easy to pump, so it gives you good feedback and it just requires a relatively fast cadence rather than a big scooping circular motion that you might use on a bigger, looser canopy. Now if you thought that looked a little bit more difficult, here's another example where I've got a bit more wind to play with, and you can see that we come up on foil much quicker and more easily. When it comes to low end and high end, then I've always felt that the unit is an average speed wing with a bias that is towards the low end rather than the high end. With the 2025 wing, that view has not changed. However, I would say that the 2025 version is generally a much more stable wing and less fidgety, and is actually now easier than the 2024 wing to ride overpowered because it just doesn't move around and pull you around as much. It just sits much more stably in front of you. That doesn't mean that it is fast or indeed better than other wings that do well overpowered, but it is certainly better than the 2024 version. As already mentioned, stability of this wing is improved over the 2024 wing, and it does tend to sit much more comfortable in front of you. It's less prone to moving around in gusts, and it is nicely balanced between the front and back hand. So in terms of how it feels overall when cruising, it is a calmer and more forgiving wing than the previous generation of unit. In gusts, the balance of the wing doesn't move forwards or backwards but stays nicely centered. So overall it is definitely a more stable and certainly more beginner friendly wing than the 2024 unit. Now you'll probably notice I'm choosing my words carefully here because things have changed a bit for jibes, advanced jibes and tacks. In the design overview I talked about the reduced dihedral and the fact that this wing is more stable than last year when flagged out on the front handle. This change is what has led to the wing feeling more stable overall, but when you move a wing in this direction, then the playfulness of the wing can be the casualty. That unfortunately is the case with the 2025 wing. I don't find it as willing to be thrown around as the 2024 wing. It's slower to transition tip to tip, and whilst it still does have a light feeling in the hands, especially the SLS version, that unwillingness to transition tip to tip and a preference of the wing to want to fly flat makes it a wing you have to be more assertive with to push it through different wing rotations. I find it less keen to flip over in Heineken jibe, and the same is true in tacks where it needs to be thrown more aggressively into the attack to avoid it just flattening out overhead. This is especially true in hillside tacks and makes coming into a hillside tack feel a little more daunting as to whether the wing is going to play ball or get stuck overhead as you go through the eye of the wind. Of course, all of this can be dealt with using modified technique, but I do miss the playfulness of the 2024 wing in this area and its automatic tacking and very easy to initiate Heineken jibes. So to sum up, jibes, advanced jibes and tacks, this wing is still good in this area and actually better than many other wings on the market. The SLS especially is very light in the hands, but if you're coming from the 2024 wing, then you may find it less compliant and needing some modification to your technique to make it do what you want. Whilst we are talking about advanced riding, I'll quickly add in backwind riding here. Both the 4 meter and 6.5 meter are relatively accomplished when in the backwind position. The 6.5 meter is a bit on the large side for this. The tight canopy on both sizes doesn't lend itself that well to producing a great deal of power when backwinding, but as long as you are well powered when you're the right way round, in other words, you're towards the upper end of the wind range of the wing, then you can get some really quite nice backwind rides with good speed on both the 6.5 and the 4 meter wing. Wings with tight canopies tend to get better at backwinding as the canopies loosen off with use. It seems as usual, on days where we have good swell or I've been jumping, I've elected not to mount the camera. This is often because it's winter, and in trickier conditions, if I fall, the camera doesn't clear of droplets, so I don't bother to mount the camera as some falls are inevitable in swell or choppy conditions. Regardless, I have jumped the 6.5 metre and the 4 metre, and I've ridden them in waves with the 4 metre mainly, as we don't get many waves in 6.5 metre conditions. In comparison to the 2024 wing, I would say the 2025 wing is an improvement, especially when flagged out on waves. The stiffness of the SLS lends itself well to jumps, and you get a good bit of glide like you do from an aluula wing on the way back down. The 4 metre Dacron, you don't get so much of this, but it generally feels stiffer than the 2024 wing, and so you get a bit more support and lift on the way up at takeoff and on the way back down again. Okay, let's pull this all together into a summary. The best product here is the SLS version of this wing. You get a lot of the benefits of an aluula wing, but without the price tag. It's light, stiff, and being the concept blue version is eco-friendly. Compared to last year, the unit has become more beginner friendly due to its improved stability and good low end, with an uncomplicated pumping action to get onto foil. It will suit all riders from beginner to expert, and the SLS is particularly good for jumping due to its stiffness. Wave riders will like this new version, as the flag out is much improved over last year. The casualty here is those riders who really like a playful wing with an amazing tack. That is not as good as last year, and I feel this is a consequence of making the wing more stable and beginner friendly, and making it better on the flag handle for wave riding. The pricing is similar to last year, which is good as prices have not gone up significantly. The SLS being the bargain as you get close to D-Lab performance but without the price. Obviously you do now have to buy handles separately, but you have the choice of boom or handles, or even both. The boom is not as easy to switch between wings like the slick was, so unfortunately you're likely to buy a boom per wing, but is now much cheaper than the old slick boom. Now to the question I asked at the beginning, which is whether I will continue to run units in my personal quiver, and unfortunately the answer to this question is I'm one of those foilers who values playfulness and tacking over flagging out. Where I ride, we only get wind-driven swell on 25 knot plus days, and as such wave riding is much lower down my priority list. We have many more days where doing foiling tricks and complex jibes make up the fun. So I'm now on the lookout for a new wing in 2025. We will see where my search lands later in the year. So that's it for this video. I hope it's been useful, and I'll see you on the next video.